All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Hummert here, and today we're going to be doing Unit 2, Notes 3, Solving Systems Using Elimination. So when we have things with two variables, we can't solve them. So this is going to kind of help us talk through that. So because this is a longer note sheet, I'm actually going to do the video in two parts. So the first part is just going to go through number 7, and we're going to take a look at those, kind of do some basic examples, and then I'm going to have you try a couple on your worksheet to make sure you kind of understand the basics of elimination. Then you can come back, watch part 2, and part 2 will go over more in-depth versions of elimination. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 2, or looking at what solving systems by elimination is. So I've already talked about that you can't solve two equations with two variables. So what we end up having to do is make one equation that has one variable in it. Okay, so then what we do is we're going to combine the equations so that the variable drops. Now right now that just seems like a bunch of mumbo jumbo. It's going to make a lot more sense when we get to the next one. So taking a look at number 1. Okay, so what I want to look for when I'm solving by elimination, I want to look for same number and opposite sign on a letter. So I'm looking for the same number but opposite signs on a letter. So when I look at 1 here, I notice that I have 1 and then a negative 1x. So that means that my x are opposites. So when I add them together, they're going to cancel out, or they are going to eliminate. So that's where the method of elimination comes in. So what we can do, since we already have our opposites, is I'm actually going to add down the columns now. So my x's are going to cancel out. 2y minus y is just going to give me y. And 10 minus 6 is going to give me 4. Okay? So now I know my y, but with this we need to get two answers. We also need to get our x. So since we know what y is, I'm going to use that to solve for x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug y in, and I can plug it into either one of these. It doesn't matter which one. So I'm just going to plug it into the top one. So I have x plus 2, then I'm going to take out the 4 and plug in, or take out the y and plug in 4, and that's going to be equal to 10. So what I did is I took this exact equation right here and I wrote it out the exact same way, but instead of putting in y, I put in 4. So then 2 times 4 is 8, and that's going to be equal to 10. So now to get my x, I just need to subtract 8 from both sides, and I get that x is equal to 2. Okay, x is equal to 2. So now when you write out your final answer, you typically write it out as a point, x, y. So we're going to write that out as a point. First our x, and then our y. Okay? So that's your final answer for number 1. Let's go ahead and let's take a look now at number 2. So when we do number 2, I notice that I have a positive 1 and a negative 1 with that y, which means the y's are opposites. And that means I'm ready to do some elimination. So 2x minus 3x is a negative 1x. And that's going to be equal to 4 minus 8, which is a negative 4. So now what we're going to do is divide both sides by a negative 1, because I don't want to know what negative x is equal to. I want to know what x is equal to. So when I divide out two negative numbers, it's going to become positive. So then my x is equal to 4. So now I have a choice. I can plug it into the top or the bottom. Now what I noticed about the top is there's a positive 1y. Now just as a hint, that tends to make it easier to solve, but ultimately you can plug x into either equation and it'll still work. So then I'm going to have 2x, oops, sorry, not 2x. I know my x is 4, so I'm going to substitute out my x and I'm going to write in 4 instead. And then I'm going to use that top equation and I'm going to keep everything else in that equation the same, just substituting out that x. 2 times 4 is 8. Plus y is equal to 4. Subtract 8 from both sides, and I get that y is equal to a negative 4. So my x is a positive 4, and my y is a negative 4. So that means my answer is 4, negative 4 in parentheses. Okay. Next, let's take a look at number 3. So for number 3, I notice that my x's have negatives, and a positive. So I have a negative 2x and a positive 2x, which means I can just add down the columns because I already have my opposites. So those are going to cancel out. So then I'm going to have 3y plus 2y, which is going to give me 5y, and that's going to be equal to negative 11 plus 6, which is going to give me a negative 5. So then I'm going to divide both sides by 5, and then we're going to get y is equal to a negative 1. So then what I need to do is I need to pick an equation. Now that I know what y is equal to, I can plug it into either one. Well, let's just plug it into the bottom, make life a little interesting for ourselves. So I'm going to keep everything in the bottom the same, except when I get to that y, I'm going to take y out and I'm going to put negative 1 in instead. And that's going to be equal to 6. So then I get 2x minus 2 is equal to 6. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And then I get 2x is equal to 8. Divide both sides by 2, and I get that x is equal to 4. So that's the first part of my coordinate point is 4, and then my y is equal to negative 1. So my answer for that one is 4, negative 1. Now, taking a look at number 4, I see that I have a negative 1 with my y and then a positive 1 with my y. So again, I already have those opposites, so I can go ahead and add down the columns. So 7x plus x is going to give me 8x. The y's cancel out. 9 plus 7 is going to give me 16. Divide both sides by 8, and then I end up getting that x is equal to 2. Okay, so then I can plug it into either one of those equations. It doesn't matter which one. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at let's plug it into the bottom one. So we're going to have 7, and then I know my x is 2, so I'm going to plug that in for x, plus y is equal to 7. So then I'm going to get 14 plus y is equal to 7. Subtract 14 from both sides, and I get that y is equal to 7 minus 14, which is a negative 7. So then what I end up getting is 2, negative 7, and that's my final answer for number 4. Now let's take a look at number 5. What I notice on number 5 is that my y's at least have the same number. So they both have a negative 1, but they're not opposite. So I need to make one of them opposite. So what I'm going to do is multiply this bottom equation by a negative 1. And that's going to change all of the symbols. So when that happens, I'm going to end up getting 7x plus y is equal to 7. So now I can go ahead and add down the columns because now I have a plus y. So really I'm just going to ignore this version now, okay? So then I'm going to have x plus 7x, so that's going to give me 8x. My y's are going to cancel, and 9 plus 7 is going to give me 16. So I can divide both sides by 8, and I get that x is equal to 2. So now I have a couple options. I could plug my x into that one, or I could also plug it into that one as well. You can plug it into your new version because it's really the same equation. So what we're going to do is let's just do that. We're going to plug it into the new version. So instead of having x, I'm going to put 2, and then that's going to be plus y is equal to a positive 7. Okay, so then I get 14 plus y is equal to 7. Subtract 14 from both sides. And then we get that y is equal to a negative 7. Okay, so then we're going to write out our coordinate point. First our x, then our y. So 2, negative 7 is our answer for number 5. Let's take a look at number 6. Same thing. On number 6, I don't have those opposites, okay? But I do notice that on my x's, I have the same number. So what I'm going to do again is just multiply one of them by a negative 1. So that's going to change the sign of everything in the equation, even what's on the other side of that equal sign. So that's going to become a negative 10. So now I can ignore this version and go ahead and add down the columns. So negative 4x plus 4x, well, that's going to cancel out. 2y minus 3y is going to give me a negative y. 8 minus 10 is a negative 2. So now in order to get a positive y, I need to divide both sides by a negative 1, and that's going to give me 2. So now that I have 2, I can plug it back into any of these versions. So let's just plug it into the top version. So I have negative 4x plus 2. Now instead of writing my y, I'm going to write 2 is equal to 8. So I get negative 4x plus 4 is equal to 8. Subtract 4 from both sides. And then I get negative 4x is equal to 4. Divide both sides by negative 4. And I get that x is equal to negative 1. So now I'm going to write that out as a point. First my x, like so, and then my y, which is 2. So let's take a look at this word problem, and then we'll be done with the first part of this video. So it says that the sum of two numbers is 12. So that means when I add two numbers together, is going to be 12. The difference of two numbers, now remember that difference means subtraction. Okay, so the difference of those two numbers, so when we subtract them, it's going to be a negative 4. So that's how I'm going to set that one up. So I notice that my y's have same number, opposite sign. So I can go ahead and add down the columns. X plus x is 2x. 12 minus 4 is going to give me an 8. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2, and here I get that x is equal to 4. Again, I can plug it back into either one of those equations. I'm just going to plug it into the first one. So I'm going to have 4 plus y is equal to 12. Okay, so now I'm going to solve for y. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, and I get that y is equal to 8. So those are my two numbers. And most of the time for word problems, you don't write them out as separate points. Okay, you can just write out your answers. So that concludes part 1 of your note video. So go ahead and complete the front side of your practice sheet, and then when you're done with that, you can pick up the second half. Thanks for listening.